and welcome to a Taylor's Tales podcast. This is Chris's Corner. I'm your host, Chris Taylor, and welcome back to a brand new episode. This week, I'm talking about Tinder, specifically messaging 200 individual women all about why they're putting their Instagram tags within their bio. Something that, for me, seemed a little bit peculiar. A lot of the time, you go to these tags, and actually the Instagram account is privatized, and the Tinder profile is obviously public. So, why? I mean, for me personally, it's not that much of a curious, statement. For many of the guys, it's like, well, it's obvious, Chris. They're there to get more followers, or you're going to direct them like a message directly if you're really interested in them. And obviously, that is the case. But for those who are either new to the application or are thinking to themselves, well, the whole point of having Tinder is to be able to message back and forth with people you're interested in. So why have they got something that would take them externally from the application into a separate application to convolute or complicate the whole process in the first place? Well, that's what I'm here to discuss. And I'm going to just present the facts and I'm going to give my opinions, but I would also like to point out that it's down to you to evaluate what you hear from here today. I've been very respectful in how I've done things. I am not here to call anyone out. I'm also not here to insult anybody in any way, shape or form. I'm putting this out as purely factual and purely as a study that is a small study. 200 people isn't enough. 200 women specifically of it is enough. We aren't seeing the other side of things. And that will be truly interesting to flip it and be able to see it from the opposite perspective. So, let's get started with the three main points of why I wanted to find this out. Well, the first thing is, for me personally, I saw it and I thought to myself, well, this is quite shallow, isn't it? It's quite shallow, thinking to yourselves like, put this in my Instagram tag and someone will follow me no matter, just because I'm pretty, basically. But recently, after having a conversation with a few people, I've realised that that's not the case. You have to think of it of both sides, that yes, there's the case of the followers, and I will get my phone out in a minute and I will get a conversation that backs that up, but also the fact that you have to think that these people, these women specifically, beautiful women, they are, every single one that we message are all extremely attractive, and they have to deal with that their entire lives, so they also have to deal with, a lot of people give that as a real positive, and obviously that opens up doors and it makes life a little bit easier in how people treat you. But there's also the other side of things, where you're going to get so many people coming up to you, messaging you, all of these things. I'm a complete stranger. You've got to remember that as well. Imagine if I came up to you on the street and asked you something quite personal, and this is quite personal, asking about Tinder profiles. It's your dating life. It's you as a person. You've got to think about that. How many people really want to open up about that? And that was a perspective that I didn't come up with, by the way. I have to give credit to my dad on that one, who, when we were talking about this, he thought, great concept overall, but he thought that, well, there's one point here that you're really missing, Chris, and that was that, why would anyone want to give a response back on why? Let's take it out of a perspective. Let's say we're not talking about Tinder at all. Let's say we're talking about, why do you use a certain plate or a certain knife or a certain fork or how you eat? It doesn't matter what the question is. Not many people on the street, if I came up to you with a clipboard and said, why do you do that? How many people do you think would answer in the first place? Well, you have to take that into account. And that is definitely a big slice of the responses. And I'm going to back that up a little bit by saying that you've got to remember, out of those 200 people I messaged, guess how many, responded? 6%. That's 12 people. That's not a lot. Now, I'm going to get into the obvious facts here in a minute. And we'll get into the fact, but I wanted to make that as a main point. How many people really want to give you answers on stuff like that, especially when it's personal, We don't go up to people and ask them about their dating life. So I was very made aware that these results don't typically sum everyone up, and it doesn't reflect specifically on what people really want to show. I'm hoping that this podcast, really gives a eye-opener to the goodwill, shall I say, that I'm putting forward, and also saying that I'm not here to really open up any doors to being like, look at this person, burn them, they're a witch, burn them. We're not doing that at all. If that gets clipped up, that's great. But nonetheless, the point being here is this, is that number one, I originally thought that, people are purposefully doing this to be able to shallowly just obtain an audience for them to just feel self-gratification. Look at me, I'm pretty, come follow me. And it's not the case at all. I don't think that is. Even if we look at 94% of those people not responding, we have to take into account the fact that people don't exactly like being asked these questions in the first place. Now, let's take into the second thing that I thought. I thought as well, laziness. I thought to myself, well, there's also the case of people putting their Instagram tag on the Tinder bio because they don't really want to have to go into Tinder. They don't really want to have to look, go through the conversations, swipe. If they just put their tag in the bio, then they get direct messages, and there you go. You get people who are interested in you, and then you don't have to go into the application, and you immediately get responses. Obviously, I've used the word lazy, but probably the better word for it is efficient. And as Bill Gates has once said, you hire a lazy person because they'll find the quickest route to be able to get something done. And that, in this case, could be used. It could be used in that specific. So we're seeing both sides. The negative here is that the person you're potentially dating isn't really going to put as much effort as you are. And you could consider this as a simping method. You could consider it as that, oh no, you're lowering yourself down to this person. But I don't think that's the case. I don't think a lot of people out there in the general public, I'm a big believer of people, most people are really good people, and that the minority, the small amount of people are making us all look bad, basically. But the point here being is that, yes, you can consider it lazy, or you could think about it and say it efficiently. So you could respect the person for the fact that they've used the method. Because they're good looking, they're going to utilize that idea to get there. So we're seeing both sides. We're not just one-sided arguments. I am very much open to both sides. And if you're in the comment section below, or if you're listening to this on Spotify, give us a comment, give us a message, say something that you have experienced in this matter. If you have, please, I want to hear about it, because this is fascinating stuff. We're all dealing with this. If you're in your early 20s, mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, late 30s, whatever, you're going to have to deal with a dating life, and you're going to have to deal with these issues. And it's fascinating to know where we're going to go with this, and what is the situation, and how do you deal with it. And like I said, I've given opinions here, but there's also the facts that of actually what happens. So, third point that I thought was actually a smart one here, and again it goes back to efficiency, is that the people who put their tags, the women who put their tags in Tinder, is they're going to filter out the type of people that they actually want to date. So immediately they get rid of all the people that they're going to swipe left on Tinder, and they're going to be able to immediately get guys who come directly to them who are interested specifically in them. And therefore, they're going to be able to judge off their profile, off their Instagram profile, which is a lot more personal and a lot more, it explains more about the person than a Tinder profile does, which can be a little bit daunting when you meet up with somebody. I've gone on Tinder dates before. You don't really know them very much. You kind of, it's a lot, it's a little bit like, things can go wrong, basically. So, how do you deal with that? How do you sort that out? Well, you use this filtering scheme where you put your Instagram tag in there and you get direct messages, and then they can make the decision. Obviously, from the other side of things, it's not so great for the guy because they have less control and they have to put themselves out there to be able to get that. Now, for me personally, I've never messaged this amount of women in my life on Instagram. For me, it was kind of daunting, number one. I find the whole messaging someone directly via a social media application kind of a little bit creepy. Let's not beat around the bush. It is. It doesn't matter how you put it, a stranger is messaging you, and in my case, I'm messaging about a video. Still doesn't come off as exactly high quality mail, does it? Just saying. Just putting it out there into the world that it's a two-way street. Number one, they could be weird. Let's not rule that out. There's also the possibility that you are a complete psychopath, and you're about. I said that so strangely, didn't I? Psychopath. Yeah. God, if you've not seen this podcast before, there's plenty of that. The point being here is this: that it goes both ways on filtering people out. You're also going specifically for the girl that you want, and you're also having the other way around. where the girl's getting the type of guys that she actually wants. Now, granted, the studies out there from Tinder aren't exactly great from how women want a very small minority of men. Now, that can come off even more so in the statistic that I just gave you. 96% not responding, only 6%. You've got to remember also on top of that the women actually look at around 80% of men and just slice them out and just go, no, not for me. And it's for men, we're a lot less choosy in that sort of sense. It's fine. It's scientifically proven for why that is the case in terms of gender. And this is not, I repeat, not a dig at anybody in specifically or any gender or group, because I'm just stating the facts here. This is just scientific studies that I've either heard from Andrew Huberman or other Tinder-specific videos that I've looked up on YouTube. Please look them up yourselves. I'll tag them in the YouTube description, Spotify description below, and you'll be able to see for yourselves what I'm talking about. And you won't look at me and go, don't criticize everybody. I'm not trying to. I'm really not. I'm trying to be as respectful as I can in this scenario. So, we've talked about the 3 main points that I thought of before I went into this. And also, for me personally, it's kind of a little bit of a cathartic therapeutic session for me in this scenario, because it allows me to understand for myself how to proceed going forward. Actually, it also reminds me a little bit of a humbling session as well, because obviously we can all think we're relatively good looking, and we can all think of ourselves as, oh, I can get this person, that person. It's also 6%. That's hits you hard, and that gives you a good ego check, and that's always good. Having feedback, having pushback, not necessarily a bad thing. So, moving on from there, what were the actual results? Well, like I said, 96% didn't respond, and you can take that as you will. You, the viewer, may get a much better response. Remember, I was using this specific line, and it's not exactly, it's how should I put it? It's not exactly going to entice a person to be able to want to respond back, okay? The whole point of this was to be very honest and to be also intrigued in why the person would do that. So, number 1 is that I put, hi, blank. I'm doing a YouTube video on Tinder and saw you on there. I'm asking people why they put their Instagram account in their bios. And then I put, so, why did you? Keeping it real simple and to the point. And I thought to myself that was really honest, really clean, and if you didn't want to participate, and I think there's like 3 girls out of the 12 who did respond who said, I don't want my name in the video or picture or anything like that. You don't need to worry about that, ladies. Number 1 is that I'm not revealing anyone's identity in this, and actually I'm not even going to reveal any sort of like Instagram pictures or any of that. It's all on a podcast. We want to keep this purely audio, so I will talk about the conversation, but I won't specifically talk about anyone's name, or if I am going to use a name, I will use replica names that are completely out of this world, different to the person who I actually spoke to. So the point being here is that I kept it very basic, very simple, and that could also contribute to the 94% non-response as well as the 6% response. You look at that and you think to yourself, well, do I really want to be part of a YouTube video or a podcast? There's that. Do I really want to have my name on the internet? This person could put me on blast. They're a complete stranger. All of these things. There's that as well. So let's get into some of the conversations. Well, I think the most common answer I got, so if I go over to Instagram now, thankfully thought this through beforehand, and I think the most common answer was that, well, actually the first answer I got was, I don't have Tinder. Now this is worrying. So I think it was 3... Yes, let's have a look. So, 3 different women all put, that they don't have a Tinder account. I deleted it a few weeks ago, for instance. That's worrying, in which case hacking or what would you call it? Fake person? What's it called? Identity theft. I immediately thought of The Office. Identity theft is not a joke, Jim. So that identity theft in this case, and I'm not going to use her name, so we'll call her Princess Leia for this scenario. Yes, I know, Star Wars reference. Yes, I know. You wonder why the 94%. So Princess Leia basically responded, I don't actually have a Tinder account, and I was like, you need to contact Tinder and let them know that there's somebody out there with your name and I don't have an official account. So to all three of the girls who said to me, I don't have a Tinder account, I would respond very much with the same answer: is you need to go to Tinder, contact them via email and make sure that that fake account gets deleted, or you need to verify whether someone you know or a person who could be a stalker, anything like this. It's all of these things. Now, I'm going into Princess Leia's specific conversation here because it gets worse. She then went on to say, thank you for letting me know. I also have a fake Instagram made of this week, so it could be in relation to that. And that's when my eyes got seriously wide. She then sends photos of both the Instagram and then, even worse, a fan page made as well. And to me, it just blew my mind. She put, they really got it in for me, and I was just blown away by that, saying, absolutely mad. Seriously, did they have it in? Yeah, they seriously do have it in for you. She was lovely. She's probably one of the nicest people that I've seen, especially in a scenario like that. She actually gave a really good support. So to Princess Leia, I will message you later on and say thank you very much for your interaction, because you are the VIP slash winner of this video, because you took it a real good sport. Because this, if you're having someone make multiple fake accounts about you, and then she also responded about actually why she would put her Tinder tag in there, was that she could have a look, and going back to that third point, filtering the guy out, and she'd be able to go through their Instagram and actually figure out whether she actually likes the person or not. It's a win-win right there, but I say win-win. She's losing because there's some weirdo making fake accounts out there for her. But anyway, I thought that was probably the one message where it was probably the most interesting in terms of people having fake accounts made about them. The second most common response was that I don't really go on Tinder, and it's much easier for them to check their Instagram accounts. And I'm trying to think what I responded with. Yeah, so the response to that, so normally a lot of the girls would say, I'd go on Instagram a lot more so it's easier for them to check. And then I would go, well, do you find that to be effective, or are you still single? Now, for me personally, when I wrote that, I was laughing my ass off because I found it kind of interesting, because if you are saying that it's more effective on Instagram, then I would assume you are in a relationship because you found this to be an extremely effective aspect. What I was trying to be was a little bit push back on that, and be like, well, if you're doing this, then it must be much better than the results you're finding on Tinder. The point being was that you're ruling out Tinder. Now, granted, I could seem as a bad guy for being a little bit like, that's not exactly a nice response, but I found it just, if the person has a sense of humour, or if they are like, oh, he's trying to get actual information out of me, or any of these reasons, or he's an arrogant bastard who I don't want to respond with, that's fair enough. It is a totally, what I would call semi-negative response, but nonetheless, the most of them did respond to that, and they would say that they are still single, but it's easier that don't have to go on Tinder conversations, basically. And I find that interesting, because that to me says that Instagram itself is obviously more popular. Number one, for women, there's more women active on Instagram than they are on Tinder. Tinder, it's the other way around. There's a lot more men on that application. So you have to think to yourselves, this makes a lot of sense. In terms of statistics, is that women are more likely to use Instagram than they are Tinder, and therefore they don't really want to go on Tinder, like I said, because they have the ability to see someone's life and profile. Now, I think you could see it from the other side of things as well. So you could also think to yourself, well, doesn't that rule out Tinder, Chris? What's the point of having Tinder? Why don't you just have let guys message you on Instagram, DMs, all of those things, well, I think it reaches out into a bigger audience, and then it allows the girl to be able to see guys who are actually single rather than obviously contrary of guys who are clearly in relationships and are willing to cheat on their girlfriends. So there is that concept, there is that case, and you have to really keep that in mind when it comes down to these sort of scenarios. So keep that in mind. And we'll move on. One of my favourite ones in terms of responses, again, I'm not going to say her name, but her response was, so I get the odd message like this and it's solely for entertainment purposes, and I have to respect that. I have to, as someone who loves entertainment, who loves YouTube, and who also, I remember when I was younger, I used to go on I don't know if it wasn't Omegle, but it was something very similar. I can't remember the name of it. But growing up, you'd go on these random applications, meet new people, get messages, and they were all very strange and all weird and all that. But it's fun to just be a part of that. And obviously, from her perspective, I can't imagine anything better than seeing some pretty strange, including my message of asking about a YouTube video and going, guys, look at this, what's this idiot sent me? So I have a big respect for that. And also I find that really funny, because in my mind, if I'm sending a message, I'm also thinking to myself, in this case, this person's going to share this with the rest of their friends and family. You have to think about that, and you have to really think it through before you go doing something along those lines. So think it through. And if you're a guy DMing, be very wary of what you're sending, because it will, in this case, as proven here, it may be shown to other people. Don't put any cringy stuff in there. So, yeah. I'm just going through some of the messages to see if there's anything here that's going to go away from what I said. Oh yeah, there was one. So obviously I've created a list, so a 200-person list of these Instagram tags, and one of the girls really got me. Totally, it's fair enough. She won this conversation. Apparently, in her bio, it describes why she had the Tinder bio, like her Instagram tag in her Tinder bio. And for me personally, I felt like a fool. I was like, oh damn, but she completely schooled me. She said, maybe you should start making notes. And to be fair to her, she's spot on. I should have been making notes as I was going on. So this is YouTube research getting absolutely pwned here, as you would say back in the day. My reasons, because I don't really use it, hard reply on there, so same again. That is literally the majority of the conversations is, because I'm not very active on Tinder. And, that's fair enough. Again, that was one of my responses. I would say fair enough to them, because this, if you're not wanting to be on Tinder, it's not exactly the application you really want to say to your future husband or wife, oh yeah, we met on this dating app. Now, fair enough that obviously dating apps have become prevalent in today's society, and it would be foolish not to be on it, to eliminate it and also have the same ability to get messages, like in this case, from random users, is that, you can eliminate that process of having to deal with certain guys of the less tasteful class. And finally, one of the messages, more followers in it. And I love that she put that. And I said, at least you're honest, and that can also be, really good. But moving on from that, I think I've given you statistics there. I've given you some fun conversations, and honesty is the best policy in this case. What have I personally learned from this? Well, from a male perspective, here's the thing. From a male perspective, what I've learned is just, if you find somebody on Tinder and their Instagram tag is in their bio, for me, I'm just going to message them directly on IG and play the numbers game. If you find them attractive, you make a list and you just message them one by one. Yes, that comes off as extremely creepy and kind of weird, but it's also the idea that in today's society, as you've seen, 94% non-replies, you're going to have to play the game of numbers in order to be able to get that reply or that date, any of these things. And you have to be very aware that as a guy, there's plenty of other better looking men who are in better positions and have maybe better photos taken of them as well. I take into that account. But, good for them. There's no negativity here in this video whatsoever. For me, I've learned something from this. The good thing for me, it's like, oh yeah, I've learned that, right, on Tinder, I shouldn't be expecting to be getting matches with these girls. I need to directly message them. I need to make sure that I'm putting more effort in. And I also have to understand from the other perspective that I need to be aware that there's, another 199 guys also doing the same thing. Now, what can you, the listener, the viewer, learn from this? Well, as a woman, you've also got to be aware that not everyone's going to be like me. And I'm not going to be, I've been as respectful as I possibly can. Yes, I push the boundaries from time to time by asking silly questions like, why are you still single? And has it been effective? And yes, that may came off as an offensive. I'm so sorry if it has. Or you could find it very intrusive of me coming into your life and then making content based off you. There's also that. But the point here being is this, that you need to understand that society is the way it is, and we are going to have to work with it. Yes, we may need to change it. Yes, there's also the idea that if you see people in real life, probably better to interact with them there as well. Now, I rolled my eyes at this statement when a mate said to me, oh yeah, I'd much rather meet someone in real life. And I thought to myself, well, the likelihood of you bumping into the person, you're going to fall in love with, or any of these things, any, relationships, all of that, in your hometown or in England, a very small population, you've got 60 million people here, and out of those 60 million, you halve it because half of them are married, or half of them are men. Your small amount of people that you're dealing with gets smaller and smaller. So having to look into other countries, traveling the world, you broaden your horizons, and again brings it back to the idea that you have to play the numbers game. So another point to also think about is, well, maybe you're thinking to yourself, Chris, what's the point of me using Tinder then? And I would say to you this, is that Tinder is a necessary evil. Putting yourself out there provides opportunity. It shows that you are looking to date, and it merely just states that. Yes, the statistics are against you. So what can you do to be able to better yourself in this scenario? Well, number one, do all the things that you're doing to better yourself anyway. So earn more money, make yourself in better shape, living your life, enjoying yourself. All of these things accumulate and make you a much more attractive guy. This is what I'm learning, by the way. I'm not giving advice. This is for me personally. I'm like speaking to myself right now, because personally, I think that's what I should continue to do. I'm not going to find this as any negative or any positive from this, because it's just a learning experience. But what I am understanding is that we can't see it as, oh, these people are just all shallow, blah, 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 poor me. That's not how we're thinking about this. We're thinking about this as a learning experience. We're thinking about this as people are people, and society is the way it is. And I want to end on this on a really positive idea, is that those 12 people who responded are really good sports, having to deal with a random stranger coming in and asking them about their dating lives. How silly is that? So, I hope you've enjoyed this week's podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the idea of me going out and doing some research. I have said before that I was going to really push the boundaries a little bit more and find more information and do my studies and not just put out on-the-fly podcasts. As you can see right now, my background isn't as put together at the moment. I'm putting my bookshelf together, and as you can see, I haven't fully put it together yet, and I just chucked it in the corner there for some sort of background. Otherwise, you guys would be just staring at white, and that's just nothing worse, is there, than just staring into a white wall. Even with me in front of it, you can't. Even worse. No, I'm just kidding. But point being is this. That I will try to get some sort of sign with Taylor's Tales on it, and I will try and improve. I really like this standing vibe. I don't know if you. I'm not sitting in a chair anymore. It feels a lot more freeing, and I feel a lot more energized when I'm making the podcasts. Now, granted, if I'm doing an hour podcast with a person, we are going to have to sit down in the background there, and I've got a couple of chairs to be able to do that. But I don't know. I just feel more, linked in with you, the viewer or the listener. Rather than me sat down being all cozy in the corner. It's still Chris's corner because there's still in the corner over there, but nonetheless it feels like the podcast is evolving and we're moving in the right direction. I hope, again, like I said, I hope you've really enjoyed this Tinder experiment and messaging 200 poor women from their perspective, and 200 women who have provided me with a really good understanding of why we have Tinder and why we have Instagram, and also how to be respectful, how to move forward, and also find the positives in everything. So, this has been the Taylor's Tales podcast. This has been Chris's Corner. I've been your host, Chris Taylor, and as always, I hope to see you this time next week. Bye now.